All right, here we go. Another installment of last minute live videos from yours truly, Grant, here at Dash Legacy. I had a plan this afternoon to put together a shed for my barn animals. Hey, what's going on, Alan? I had a plan today to put together some of my a shed for my barn animals. And in typical fashion, it sat by the other shed and it came to us damaged. So instead of putting together my shed, I figured I'd get some thoughts out and just talk a little bit. So I'm going to do a little bit better. I got some notes today. I'm going to do a little bit better at not getting so sidetracked. I'd love to hear comments and engagement. If you guys have something you want to add to it, just put it in the text. I'll do my best to keep up with it. I'll wait just a few more minutes here in the event that somebody is actually bored with football, or like in Alan's case, he doesn't watch football and wants to hear me ramble on and on incessantly. Again, a lot of this too is just for my own practice. I want to continue to build the Dash legacy here on Instagram. I want to continue to build a community of like-minded individuals that want to continue to get after everything in life with their own goals, personal goals, work goals, physical fitness, nutrition, whatever it is. Alan, I know you got something good brewing up there, buddy. I showed you the picture I did earlier, so we'll see how yours, well, whatever you got, I'm sure it's going to be amazing. So yeah, I'll probably wait just a couple of minutes here, see if anybody else wants to join, and then we'll get started. Just for the couple of people that are on here today, I'm going to talk about choices. Why do we choose what we do? A subject that's near and dear to my heart. And of course, I'm no expert. I'm not pretending to be an expert, but you know, I pride myself in liking to at least talk about these things. And a lot of it is to make myself better, along with anybody else. So Alan, right now it's just me and you. There's a couple of people that jumped on, but jumped off. So I'll wait just a minute. And then I'd love to have you on. I'm getting a new phone soon. So, I should be able to work out the issues with not being able to bring people into the lives. So what are you cooking, Alan, while we wait here? I'm just going to give it probably 3 more minutes and then I'll get started. What are you cooking, Alan? Oh, man. Pumpkin mochi bites. That sounds really good. Ginger pumpkin soup. Wow, man, you're going all big. All right. A few more people are coming in. I appreciate it. Like I said, we're going to wait, like 2 more minutes and then, tell your friends. If you just joined, have your friends join, have your friends join. For those of you that follow me and know me, I just get a random wild hair and I decide to jump on here. And again, a lot of it's for practice. A lot of it's just to continue, engaging with the audience, practicing on the camera, making sure that I stay on track. I came to the Instagram platform without really much knowledge or experience. I came to the platform, I'm not a book writer. I'm not a celebrity, just a regular guy. So I didn't come to the social media realm with a big, legacy of my own in that world. So I'm kind of building organically or internally, so to speak. So the more practice I get on here, the better I get and the more engagement I get with all you guys, who continue to want to try to get after it and do the right thing and be the best that they can each day and whatever that looks like for each one of you. I've recently met some really cool people here on Instagram. A young lady who actually lives now in like my hometown. I reached out to her and we were kind of just chatting a little bit. She's really awesome. Her name is Snez. If you get a chance to check her out, she's awesome. Pardon me, I can't pronounce her last name, but if you look on there, it's Snez, something with a V, Snez. Real goal oriented, real fitness minded, loves to get after it. Met her and been talking with her recently. So it's been a good week as far as engagement. All right, here we go. Without further ado, I don't think anyone is even watching at this point anymore. That's okay. I can't tell. It looks like somebody might have jumped on or off. But anyway, here we go. So a little bit more practice for me. Today, we're going to talk about choices. You know, all of us have choices in everything that we do. All of us have, you know, we make right choices, wrong choices. We make choices that benefit us. We make choices that benefit others. You know, life is a series of choices. And when I started to open up on this live, I said, I'm not an expert. I've definitely made millions of bad choices. I've made a couple of really good choices that have impacted me in a very positive way. Luckily for me, I've never made such an error in judgment or decision that I've made a choice that has had too much of an impact. It has had an impact, but you know, nothing life or death, nothing serious like that, but definitely a lot of bad choices or a series of bad choices. And, you know, I have a teenage son that lives at home, and, you know, I've been struggling with our communication and our relationship for the last few years. I don't really talk about that a whole lot, but, you know, it's a work in progress. You know, he's a teenage boy. He's got his own set of issues. It's kind of a long story. This isn't really the time to get into that. But at any rate, this afternoon, you know, I'm just thinking about the decisions that my son makes and the decisions I make, things that he does, things that he says or doesn't say or do. And since the shed that I was supposed to set up for my wife is damaged, I decided to just get my thoughts out. So here we go. So, you know, some of you guys may have heard of the OODA loop, the OODA, which is observe, orient, decide, and act. If you're in the military or like-minded, you've probably heard that acronym before. You've heard people on Instagram or social media talk about it. It's mainly seems to be used in the tactical scenario, where there's a threat present or a direction to travel, things like that. But the OODA loop, as we call it, is ever present in everything that we do each day, everything that we encounter, things that we see, things that we experience. The OODA loop is always there and always present. So when things come into our view, you know, we observe them, whether that's visually or in some way we recognize that this event is going to occur, about to occur in front of us. We orient ourselves, meaning like we get a firm grip on, you know, what direction we're going. Which are we leaning into the decision? Are we going that direction? Kind of just like you would orient a map. Then there's the decide or the decision point that we all have to do each day. And then act, right? So we see something or we're made aware of it. We kind of orient ourselves to it like, hey, how's this going to make me feel? How's this going to influence me? And then we make that decision and then we act on it. So in the tactical world, you know, you're talking about, you see an enemy off in the distance. You know, you see the enemy, you orient yourself and your weapon system, perhaps your security posture in that direction. Then you make your decision, you know, return fire, you know, hold fire, whatever the case may be. And then you act on it if there's some decision point. The thing I want to talk about today is, and I'll give some specific examples in my own life, but today I want to talk about a couple of key things. Number one, with all decisions, whether you think it involves discipline or not, it does. Sometimes it takes a lot of discipline to make the right decision. Sometimes it takes a lot of discipline to make the wrong decision. And what do I mean by taking a lot of discipline to make the wrong decision? Sometimes we go to make a wrong decision, or we maybe know the decision is wrong and we want to make it anyway for a bunch of reasons, which I'm going to talk about here in a second. But then something inside of us is telling us we should have made that decision. And sometimes our ego and our personality and our circumstances or our environment get involved, and we don't go back on the decision we made. That happens a lot with young adolescents. You talk about the peer pressure thing. There are some kids that are making a bad decision, knowing that it's a bad decision, and that little voice in their head is telling them it's a bad decision. But they're too, you know, immature. They're too scared, fearful, whatever the case may be, to go back on that decision because they want to be part of the group. They want to be accepted, or they don't really know what it would look like to stand firm in their values and beliefs at that moment and face the entourage of critics and other things from their peer group or their friends. And this happens with adolescents, but we also see it in the personal and professional world as well. Well, we make a decision knowing it's not the best for us, because we're fearful of the outcome, or we're fearful of what might happen of it or how we're judged accordingly. So let me talk about a couple of things. So why do we choose what we do? The first note I have here is for pain. Do we actually choose things to put ourselves in pain? Do we choose things to get away from pain? So I will say for me, when I was struggling a lot in the past with overusing alcohol and dealing with anxiety and depression, I would knowingly choose to put myself in a lot of pain in hopes that what I was attempting to gain from that was for all the stress and all the noise and all the other things going on in my brain to subside to a level that I could maintain, status quo or maintain just my normal thought pattern and not think about a bunch of different things, whether it was combat related or any other. And like my wife just added here, physical pain can help dull out something else. Yeah, that's another good point. Sometimes we put ourselves in emotional pain, spiritual pain, but in your case, Shayna, you're talking about physical pain, which yes, there are some things that people do to put themselves in physical pain, to either dull something out or maybe a mental pain transference, or perhaps there are cases where people they realize that they hurt somebody else or they cast judgment or pain. They sent pain towards somebody else that really affected them, and they're not emotionally mature enough to know how to deal with that. So sometimes they invoke physical pain on themselves. In some cases, like when people are cutting, or if they're doing other really bad behaviors that causes physical pain, sometimes people suspend themselves from hooks, all these other things. A lot of times that's rooted in trauma and rooted in, pain transference. A lot of times we choose to make decisions to stay away from pain as well. One of those pains I talked about was the pain of the peer group, pain of peer pressure, pain, or maybe immaturity that doesn't allow you to get away from that decision that you made. So think about that. Pain is a kind of an interesting motivator when it comes to decision making. Some would even go so far as to say people that are in the fitness world or the extreme sports world or things like that endure a level of self-inflicted pain in order to prove something to themselves or prove to others that they can do something extraordinary, they can do something difficult, they can do something that maybe other people can't do. So there's a lot of reasons in why pain is it could be a precipitating factor behind a lot of the decisions that we make. The next one I want to talk about is comfort. Do we make decisions based on comfort? Well, that answer is absolutely yes. We make decisions because we've always made them that way. We've made decisions because we've modeled or we've watched others model for us a comfortable decision. Or a lot of times we don't necessarily make the decision for comfort, but we make the decision to not be in discomfort, which is kind of the dichotomy about the area of comfort. We may not want to make somebody else uncomfortable, and we value their comfort level, so then we make a decision. We may not want to hurt somebody's feelings, which could go to somebody else's comfort level, so we either make or don't make a certain decision based on that. Just like with anything else, I've made a lot of these too. Sometimes decisions are very comfortable. Sometimes the right decision is very difficult to make, or it takes a lot more work than maybe you have at the moment. So you do the comfortable decision. One thing to keep in mind is just because you make a comfortable decision doesn't necessarily mean it's right or wrong. It just means that maybe comfort of yourself or comfort of others or discomfort of some or yourself is one of the sole factors in why you're making that decision. The third one is desire. Now, this one is a little bit interesting because there are some people that make decisions based on their desires, and it ends up not being a decision that leads to the eventual win or getting or achieving the ultimate goal. Most of the time, if we desire something, we make a series of small decisions that lead up to achieving that desired thing or desired person or desired job, desired career path, etc. It's not normally one desire that fuels one decision. It's not normally, I really want this woman to be my wife. I'm desiring to be in relationship with this person. I will make one decision with desire at the core, and that's going to lead to my ultimate goal. With relationship building, it doesn't work out that way. but we do make a lot of decisions based on desire, our own desires, desires of our family, desires of our organization, our team, our coworkers. And in some cases, there are some traumatic experiences in which people desire to be liked or desire to be affected or have attention towards them or desire to be popular. So they also make decisions based on that. So it may not be some tangible thing that we desire or a relationship that we desire. It may be a feeling that we're chasing in which we're using desire at the focal point of our decision making. The next thing I want to talk about is the one I've talked about on Instagram here before. It's making decisions based on insecurities. I've been very open and honest about my insecurities in my life, how they've affected me, how I've gotten over them, how I've done my best to not let them shape everything that I do. And yet they still creep in sometimes. And sometimes I still let them get the best of me, just like everybody else does. The other thing I've been very open and talk about on here is looking at my own life. Insecurity is a liar. There are so many things that I have been insecure about in my life, and a majority, if not all of them, have been fake, have been false, have been brought up in my own head, and I let them get the best of me in a lot of ways. A lot of times people will make decisions or make choices based on their insecurities. So they're insecure about the way they look. So they make a decision to not leave a relationship that's toxic because they fear that nobody else will want them. Sometimes your insecurities, let's say in the fitness and nutrition world, maybe you're in a certain age group and you're competing against other people and you don't think you'll do very well. So like I've done before, you lead out with some self-deprecating humor and you make a bunch of decisions where you don't try your hardest on a certain event or you don't do your best on something that you're trying to tackle because you're insecure. Sometimes there's people that are insecure about success. I've been victim or I've been guilty of that myself. It's that, a lot of times as some of you know, I use humor or dark humor or self-effacing humor on myself because I do get a little insecure from time to time still about things I've done, things I want to achieve, different accolades that may come my way, achievements. So insecurity is a big, big driving force when it comes to decision making or choices. The next one that leads right into that, which I've also talked quite a bit about on here, is fear. Sometimes people make decisions based on fear. Sometimes people make decisions based on fear of the outcome. Sometimes people make decisions based on fear of what other people might think. So I'll give you the imposter syndrome. Yeah. Thanks for adding that to the end of that last little segment, Alan. Exactly right. Or what you and I have talked about quite a bit. So, Zach Williams, a Christian artist, has an amazing song, and I've done a video about it before. It's called Fear is a Liar. And we talk about that a lot in the Christian world. We talk about that a lot with some of my buddies. And, in the military, in the last, almost 30 years, there have been a lot of talks about fear. There's been a lot of talks about overcoming fear, how these amazing people get into these situations and they can push fear aside to achieve great, glorious things in their life. But I got to tell you, fear is a huge motivator for so many things that we do. And fear is a huge reason why some people make decisions or don't make decisions. So let me give you a good example. Let's say I'll use my own personal example. And if Shayna, you're still on here, you'll like this one maybe. So when Shayna and I were first getting together, we had been talking online a little bit. And when I was deployed, and when I got home, I thought, I still think she is, but she was the most beautiful woman I've ever seen in my life. And she had been sending me a couple of pictures, not like that, like normal, hey, here's me and my girlfriend pictures. And, I was in pretty good shape. I thought I was, big war hero coming home. And, as soon as I got home and Shayna and I started, exchanging, oh my God, the wifey shot. Oh yeah. As soon as Shayna and I started exchanging, messages, I got to tell you, I was fearful. I was thinking, wow, this is a very put together, very tall, very attractive young lady from Orange County, California. why on earth is she going to want to talk to me or hook up with me or whatever? And and that also is fear. And that's also some insecurity that I had, my own self-worth, how I viewed myself at the time, in this world, how I viewed her based on a couple of pictures and a bunch of different messages. So that fear and insecurity, if I wouldn't have noticed it, or if I would have let it taken the best of me, the Grant and Shayna story may have never happened. I don't know how true that is or not. I do know what's true though, for sure, is that fear coupled with insecurity, like we just talked about, are huge motivators. Let me give you another branch off why fear is also, or why it can also be so crippling. I will say that fear can also be so crippling because people will make decisions based on the perception of fear or based on the perception of the outcome, and the outcome creates fear. I know that sounds crazy, but we all know what we're talking about. So I choose to not do something because if I do it, I fear that X, Y, and Z will happen. And that's more what I fear than the actual decision itself. I will say, like with my son, I think a lot of times he makes decisions or fails to make decisions, at his age based on that concept, which is, if I don't, I'm just using this as an example. It's not a real example, but if I don't take the trash out, mommy and daddy are going to say something to me. And if mommy and daddy say something to me, I'm not going to like it, or I may not be able to do what I want. So I fear that. So I'll end up doing it. So it's kind of a weird dichotomy about fear. The other thing about fear, which I just talked about, is, they say fear is a liar. And I also said that insecurities are a liar also. All right. Next point is it easy? Okay. So in the military, we have an amazing phrase that we say, choose the hard right over the easy wrong. Many of us have said it. Many of us have, told our soldiers that. But what does that mean? Is every hard decision the right one? Is every easy decision the wrong one? Well, that answer is no, right? That's just a good way to remind people that sometimes the right thing is not always going to be easy, and the right thing is not always going to be just as simple as checking the box and moving on. I will tell you, in my career, there have been many, many, many hard decisions that I have had to make, and they were always the right thing to do. And I'm not saying that I've made every single right one. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, if you are at a decision point and you realize that the right thing to do is going to take more steps, the right thing to do is going to take longer, the right thing to do is going to involve more people and have things go up and down the chain of command or through the hierarchy of your organization, sometimes people will get to that impasse and they will choose the easy one. That's exactly what we mean. And if you look at how transparent we are all hoping to try to be, especially in the military now and going forward, this has never been more true. A lot of people have talked about senior leader transparency and the lack of it. Hold on, let me read this real quick. I love the quote from the book Dune. I must not fear. Fear is in the mind killer. Fear is in the little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear. I will permit it to pass over me and through me. Yeah, that's a good one. Thank you for sharing that, Alan. Yeah, so back to the thing about it being easy. Most of the time when we see these, we talked about transparency, and we all want transparency in leadership to be, paramount. We want that. I personally want that to be one of my crown jewels, and definitely part of me continuing to build my legacy is transparency in leadership, transparency in communication. Those days of, hiding in a dark corner and making decisions, they are still around. And there are some decisions that you don't need every soldier or every employee to be in on to make those decisions. I still get that. And I definitely think that there is a place for that. But as far as like being shadowy about the decisions you're making as a leader that affect your organization or affect the livelihood of your team, we got to get away from that. That's why I think transparency in senior leadership is so big. And the other reason why I think transparency in leadership is so big is because when you have a decision to make and it's the hard right over the easy wrong, there's no like behind closed doors. There's no, I don't know what's going on. And so I'm going to make this decision without the information. And hopefully I can make this really bad decision that nobody finds out. If we get, like I always say lately, I've been saying this phrase where I want the information and transparency to like blossom up like a flower. I want everybody to have as much information as they can so they too in their little areas can make their best decision. Oh, sorry. I'm trying to get back to it. Hey, thanks for that, Kylie. I appreciate it. All right. So we went on to the easy one. Okay. I got a few more notes here that I want to talk about. So we talked about discipline. All right. One of my favorite topics. Am I the most disciplined person in the world? Absolutely not. Do I do my best to be very, very disciplined in all that I do? Yes. Does it come at a cost? Yes. Is the cost worth it? Most of the time, yes. Okay, why am I saying all these things? We see, Jocko Willing talks about discipline equals freedom, talks about when there's a leadership problem, leadership is the solution, and why it takes discipline. So all of these things we talked about with choices and decision making, they all can be distilled down into personal discipline and ownership of everything that we do in life. One of the conversations I have with my son quite often is that he doesn't do a good job owning the things that belong to him. He doesn't do a good job about taking responsibility for his own own actions or lack of actions. Excuse me. And he also doesn't take responsibility for, decisions that we make on behalf of him because there's something that he didn't do. Now, I don't know if my wife is still on, but I will tell you this. Her and I have talked about something that I always have to remind myself when I have this conversation, that there are plenty of adults that do not take ownership of things that they say, that they do, the way they hurt people's feelings, the way they raise their voice, whatever the case may be. There are plenty of people that don't take ownership of that. And yet here I am expecting my 14-year-old son to take ownership of something when perhaps he doesn't have the emotional maturity in order to do that. So I feel it's sort of my duty to continue to prod him along to try to do everything he can to learn how to take ownership of things that he does. One of the phrases that I tell him is like, this big bad world is going to chew you up and spit you out. And I will tell you, even though the modern era is changing the way we look at things with the next generation of, very nimble, agile leaders, soldiers, is that accountability and ownership piece is still very large. It doesn't matter what walk of life you're from. It doesn't matter what you believe, left, right, center, what your religion is. It doesn't matter. If you learn how to take ownership of the things that you do, the things that you say, and the outcomes in which are caused because of what you do and say, you're going to be a lot better off. We're all fallible human beings. And so if we make a mistake, or we make a choice, maybe we make a choice based on some of the things that we talked about today, and that doesn't go the way that we want, we don't then get to blame somebody else for that decision. That's not the right thing to do, and that's not the honorable thing to do. If you have all the information and you choose to make that decision, you got to stick with it no matter what. And you got to own that decision. After all, is there anybody that's ever asked their spouse to marry them, and when they said yes, they're all of a sudden going to blame somebody else for the outcome? Like if I get the job that I wanted based on a lot of the hard work I did and the hiring official had the decision to hire me and it went in my favor, would I then blame, my wife for doing the interview? No, it was me doing the interview. It was me sitting in that chair selling my Dash Legacy name to everybody. It was me. So if I'm able to take credit for all the good things, if I'm able to take credit and stand up on stage and receive an award for doing all these amazing things, then when I don't do amazing things, I am equally as responsible. So I think if a lot of leaders got that in their mindset, we'd be better off, because a lot of times the arrogance level creeps in, and this decision making that we do, we don't get the desired outcome. So we immediately start shifting blame to other people. And I know kids are really good at that. So let me back up a second. Now I'm going off on a tangent. I apologize. I was very much like this when I was a child. I was like this as a child. So I'm not sitting here saying that I wasn't, that I was super emotionally mature. I wasn't saying I made all the best decisions. But this isn't the Dash Legacy page because I was 12 years old. This is me now. This is one of the main reasons why I speak with such passion about these things, because the little kid who was getting in trouble in school and always talking and always poking the bear and always doing these things, that was me. You know, I was the kid that I wasn't a natural athlete. I never really worked out a lot, you know, up until I joined the military. So the reason I'm so passionate about all of these things is because I have had the unique opportunity in making some of these decisions and living through a lot of these things. That's why I'm sitting here saying this, not because I'm perfect in no way, but because I've learned from my mistakes and I've done my best to get to the point I'm at in my life now. Luckily, by learning from a lot of these mistakes. And that's why I'm so passionate about all these things that we talk about now. And that's why I continuously bring them up over and over, and why I like to talk about them so much. Like I've said before, I said on the Millennial Veteran podcast, I said on the Long Shot Pod, I know that I'm not the most amazing person in the world. I know that I'm not the best leader in the world. But here's what I do know. I do know this for a fact, because some of the stuff I say it because I need to make sure I remind myself of it too, so I can stay on the path. I'm not sitting here saying everyone needs to follow me because I'm amazing. I say these things so I can remind myself that, like, hey, fear is a liar. If I'm scared to do something, I have to do it. My emotions aren't going to control everything that I do, even though I know sometimes they do, and I have to be aware of that. That's why I do these things. All right, the last couple of things I want to touch on is that we have to continue to model all of this behavior, like we always talk about in the military. We have to continue to model what right looks like. We have to continue to say the words that sound the best. We have to make sure that we stay physically fit. You know, everybody's always looking at us, and you don't have to be in the military to understand this. This is everybody. You know, if you're the boss and you're showing up late and you're making excuses as to why you're late, and you're not giving, and you know, no one's giving you any leeway, no one's giving you any grace, and it just continues to be the same old thing. When you're in that supervisor position, if somebody comes in there and says the same thing to you, how are you going to react? Are you going to know how to deal with that? Or are you going to know that, like, hey, I took ownership, you take ownership, and let's work on this, you know, together. Like I said, we have to continue to set the right example. All right, the last couple of notes. I'm going to try to wrap this one up here. One thing that I heard recently on one of the Jocko podcasts, I don't remember which number it was, and this doesn't just apply for food. I just happen to be using this food analogy here that I'm about to use as a reference point. So I've decided to try to cut sugar out for November. You know, from time to time, I enjoy candy and sweets. Not too often, but I do enjoy candy at night. You know, if I'm watching TV or I'm playing on my phone, I like to enjoy a little bit of candy. You know, most of my diet is like super clean, so I feel like I can have a few extra calories then. But I decided to do a no sugar November, where I'm doing everything in my power to not have any additional refined sugar. I mean, if there's naturally occurring sugars in fruits or whatever, that's the thing. But the reason I bring that up is because on Jocko's podcast, he had said something to somebody about somebody that wanted a donut, and he calls those sugar-coated lies, and he's got a funny voice when he does it. But the point that he made is, why would you let an inanimate object like a donut have so much power and control over you? And, you know, I thought about that for a second. I thought about that. Yeah, you know, it's a donut. What's he trying to get at? You know, whatever. But, you know, it is kind of true. Part of that is true. It is just a donut, or it's a cheesesteak, or it's a whatever your go-to is. It doesn't have any power and control over you. And if you give into it, you know, most of the time you feel better for eating it initially, and then maybe you don't feel later. But the reason I want to highlight that fact is because when you get down to that decision-making, you know, matrix in your head, and it comes to eating that donut, are you making that decision based on all these things that you just said? Is it easy? Is it easy for me to eat candy at night? Sometimes, absolutely. Is it the right thing? Well, on a personal goal note, right is subjective. There's no litmus test for number of Mike and Ikes that I eat at night and what the desired amount is or whatever the candy is happen to be. But I have to ask myself, am I doing it because of pain? Am I doing it because it's easy? Am I doing it because it's comfortable? That's probably more likely what it is. So the reason I bring that up is because if you have a personal goal, a professional goal, you have a religious goal, whatever your goal happens to be, as you make decisions that are affecting you going down that road to achieve your goal, think about how much power and control you are going to give over those things that are decision points. In this case, it's a donut, but maybe it's relocating your business from Tallahassee to Albuquerque. Maybe it's something like that. The cities by themselves are just spots on a map. So you have to ask yourself, are you going to let certain things for your decision give or allow power and control to be taken from you? So think about that. If you're on a fitness journey, you can think about the food aspect. If you're not, you can look at it as a relationship goal, a religious goal, etc. All right. So the other one that we want to talk about is relationship, comfort, and temporary happiness. So many of the things that we do or many of the decisions that we make for short-term happiness or short-term gains. This is ever present when we talk about this generation. Everyone loves to talk bad about this generation. You know, I don't. I do a little bit here and there, but that's individually based. That's not based on a whole. That's Mike and Ike's. There's a problem. Bad candy choices. Thanks, Alan. You know, I have at time talked about this generation or the next generation, but that's an individual basis. I don't categorize the entire generation of younger soldiers or younger teammates as awful. If I'm saying someone's awful, it's probably because of personal thing or a personal interaction that we've had. But everyone says now, a lot of people, I shouldn't say everyone, a lot of people say, oh, we're all about instant gratification and short-term gains and this and that. And I got to tell you, looking back over history, everybody's been like that. Everybody has been like that. If the iPhone 15 would have been around when my mom was a kid, she probably would have used it. If there would have been, you know, an iPad when my dad was a kid, he would have used it too, right? So we can't say that this whole world hasn't been about instant gratification. Most people don't want to put in the patience to earn something. And most of the time when you put the patience in to earn something, it's very difficult. And it takes a lot of discipline, a lot of courage, and a lot of hard work normally. That's why they don't want to do it, because it's not comfortable and it's not easy. So we have to look at when we make decisions or choices, are we looking at it for temporary happiness or are we looking at it to achieve a long-term goal? Again, when I talked about courting somebody, you normally have that desire and perhaps you're making a series of decisions based on that ultimate goal. You're making a bunch of small decisions based on the eventual goal that you want. You're not normally making one huge life-changing decision to ask that person out or send them a text or whatever the case may be. You're doing small incremental things that lead towards a goal. So remember, as you go and start this week, are you making each decision for a temporary happiness? Or is it part of your long-term goal strategy that you set for yourself? Or maybe your organization has set your goal strategy for you and you're just falling in line with it because you're trying to continue to go up the ladder and work your way towards being successful. So just think about that today. Is it temporary or is it one of the pegs up the eventual ladder to long-term success? All right. The last thing I want to talk about is self-worth. I've talked about this a lot on my page, but I think a lot of this can be encapsulated with conversation about self-worth. You know, so many people are eager to put you down. So many people are eager to throw shade, as they say, and talk a little shit now and then. Hell, we even talk shit and we talk bad about ourselves, myself included. I put myself down more than anybody else in my sphere. Nobody is as hard on me as I am. And again, I go back to fear, insecurities, comfort. Is it easy? Is it temporary? You know, a lot of times when I make these jokes about myself or about my career, it's because I still am insecure. Like Alan so graciously mentioned about the imposter syndrome. You know, I'm always fearful that something I'm going to do is going to be found out, that I'm not as good at it as I think I am, or, you know, I don't deserve all the success or all the accolades that I work for. And that is very, very difficult to wrap your head around when you achieve success or even when you achieve failures. You know, if you achieve failures, when you fail at something, it's really easy to say, yeah, I'm not good enough. And hopefully you rest in that long enough where you can pick yourself back up, align yourself with a great tribe and community, realign your goals, reestablish your baseline, and then continue to get after it if that's something that you want to do. But when you achieve success, you know, you see some of the most successful people. Let's just use social media. Some of the most successful people we see here on social media, I can almost guarantee you when they're home at night, they're looking in the mirror thinking, oh, I wonder if I'm good enough. I wonder if this person liked my performance, or I don't know if I hit that note right in that song. I wonder if someone's going to stop following my music, or someone's going to, you know, not download my next song. This happens to everybody all the time. So let me just say this. I've said these messages before. You are the only one uniquely qualified to be you. If all these people around you are not putting you down this way, then we have to stop putting ourselves down as well. And I'm pointing the finger at me as well. That's why I'm doing it, because I need to continuously work on not putting myself down, because I do add a lot of value to my organization. I learn from my organization every day. I add value to my family and my friends. I mean, I'm even adding a little value to the social media platform as I continue to do this thing. So I'm saying this to everybody because I need to be mindful of it myself, that I got to stop putting myself down. So if you're out there and you're struggling, remember, it's all about doing the next best thing that you can. Nobody's putting you down. And if they are, it's because they're jealous of either what you're trying or jealous of the success you have. All right. So the last thing that I want to touch on is just a shameless plug for my page, like I've been doing lately. So, hey, this is that thing where I'm not going to put myself down. Like in one of your previous lives, would you talk to your best friend that way? And why would you talk to yourself like that? Yeah, Alan, that's a great point. You know, you and I have talked about this before. We talk about how we talk to ourselves. Would we talk to our friends and our loved ones that same way? You know, I'm paraphrasing here what Alan is putting, but that's exactly right. You know, I will say, you know, on another note, there are times when, you know, that really hard talk and that really stern talk, like some of us are familiar with in the military, like years ago, sometimes that can be beneficial. I'm saying sometimes with a small s. A lot of times it's not, especially if it's not done the right way. But normally, if you can clue in on what makes somebody tick, or what their motivators are, or what they'll listen to, or who they'll listen to, a lot of times you can craft your message to use whatever it is, you know, to help motivate them. Sometimes it is a little tougher talk. Sometimes it's a little, maybe sounds insulting, but for the most part, most of the time it's, you know, excuse me, I'm talking in circles. Most of the time it's all about talking to everybody, you know, the right way. And that includes yourself. So that's a great point, Alan. Thank you for bringing that up. Oh, I got a lid on. All right. The last thing I'm going to cover is the shameless plug, right? So I'm not going to put myself down. I just talked about that. I'm going to stand here. I'm going to be firm. I'm going to say, hey, I'm great and amazing. You got to check out all my content. No, that's not what I'm going to say. Here's what I'm going to say when I'm trying to wrap up every one of these is I've just been doing this a very short time, but I've been doing leadership for quite a long time. I feel that this section or this part of my career means the most to me when I'm able to give back to the community that helped shape me. And so obviously a lot of what I say or my acronyms and stuff are geared towards military folks or former or current veterans. But there are a lot of good applications in the stuff that we talk about. Leadership isn't new. I just have my way of talking about it based on my own life experiences and things that I find near and dear to my heart. There's other leaders that are talking about setting goals on paper as their primary function to achieve things. Other people are talking about how fitness needs to be the number one foundational thing that you do above all else. I say, here's what I say. I say every one of those things that makes you better should have a seat at the table. Whether it's fitness, religion, nutrition, hobbies, your work, your passions, your partner, all of those things should have a seat at the table, and you should work tirelessly at all those things to continue to be the best that you can each day. If you're in amazing shape, but you're a terrible communicator, you're not really doing any good for anybody. If you're a great communicator, but you can't walk up the hill with your rucksack, then you're not doing anybody any good. If you're the best communicator and you're in the best shape ever, but you spend 23 and a half hours a day running and walking and cycling, then you have no social skills and you have no way to interact with anybody else to build relationships and community. See, I believe that it's about being the best that you can in whatever facet that you can that achieves your personal and professional goals and that improves your life, even if it's just one day at a time or one interaction at a time. That's what it's about for me. You know, the church I used to go to when we lived in Franklin talked about my church used to be a collector of broken hearts. And so I've kind of morphed that now based on a guy named Micah Fink, who's on the Jocko podcast, that talks about he's a collector of relationships. He loves the relationships and interactions that he has with everybody. So that's what I'm trying to do here. That's why I'm so adamant about continuing to jump on here. Maybe there's something we're all talking about that's going to impact somebody else. Maybe something I say will spark an idea in you to try something big tomorrow. Try to get after one of your goals and dreams that maybe you've been not doing. Or maybe you drop a comment to me and now this sparks some crazy thought in my brain of something that I want to do or something that I've been fearful of getting after. That's why I want to continue to build this community together. You know, like I said, when I open, I'm not attacking you, Kylie. You know that. Like I said, when I opened this, you know, I didn't come to social media with anything. I don't have a book. I don't have a podcast. You know, I don't have a strappy do. I don't have an elastic band to stretch your earlobes out at the gym. You know, I don't have a supplement. You know, I wasn't a special forces dude. I wasn't a Navy SEAL. I was none of these things. None of these cool social media things that are going on out there now was I, or am I? I'm not any of those things. I am none of those things. But does that mean that I don't have a seat at the table when you talk about almost 30 years in the military and all the interactions that I've had and all the conversations that I've had and how much I've learned from so many people in my life and how so many amazing people have affected my life in a positive and negative way? So that's why I want to continue to try to give back. Please continue to send me messages and let me know if there's something that you want to talk about. My new phone should be here soon, which means I can do a back and forth live, which I'm hoping to do with some of my friends where we have just like a regular dialogue like I've been trying to do the last few weeks. Send me messages if there's something you want me to talk about or you want my opinion about a leadership challenge, or maybe you just want to jump on with me and we can chat about whatever. If you're currently serving, please let me know what I can do to help support you. Maybe you're dealing with a toxic leader. Maybe you're dealing with an unproductive environment. Maybe you're dealing with a whole bunch of really awesome soldiers and you want to invite me to come check out your team. I'm an expert communicator, but hold on. Now I got to read this from Kylie. Motivated to work on social skills after this. I'm an expert communicator by trade, not so great in real life. Thank you for this. Hey, that's not true. Yes, you're an expert communicator by trade. All right. So that's what we'll do. This sounds like, if those of you are on here, this sounds like that me and Kilo Whiskey Graham. It sounds like in the future, we should set up like a week long, like just we post, we get as many people as we can. And then me and Kilo Whiskey Graham will do a live and we'll do a Q&A and we'll test each other's communication skills. Kylie, you up for that? Hey, you better, I'm going to wait. I'm not going to sign off yet until you tell me if you're up for it or not. I'm going to put you on. I'm going to do it. Let's go. So while we're waiting on, my friend Kylie there to answer back, I don't know what that emoji is. Anyway, we'll talk about it. But I will say, if you've got any great ideas, I'd love to hear from you. If you have anything that you want to talk about, I would love to hear from you. If you have any books you want to recommend, I always love to pick up new books. Me and my friend Alan, we did a book exchange a little while ago. We passed a bunch of good books back and forth. The bottom line is I want to try to continue to build community with everybody out there who wants to do better each day, despite what their background is, despite all the things that may be in front of them, despite all the obstacles and hurdles that they may place on themselves, or maybe their organizational structure places on them, or whatever background or whatever it is that you have going on, we can continue to work on each other together in community. And that's what I'm trying to do. As you know, from my call sign here, Dash Legacy, I'm trying to do my best to continue to build my legacy by helping others build theirs in the military, in the regular world, and anywhere else that I can. I just feel so compelled in the back half of my career now to continue to give back to so many others that have given to me over my career, military, civilian, and the like. So again, I appreciate everybody. For those that jumped on, thank you so much. I say this every time. I'm going to do better about setting up my lives. Once I get my new phone, though, I would love for you guys to continue to join me where I can do the back and forth, where we can have a top screen, bottom screen, and we can do interview style or conversation. I'm super excited for that. I got my buddy Jonathan I want to talk to, Kylie I want to talk to, Alan. I love talking to Alan, my buddy Nate on there. I mean, you guys know I could talk and talk and talk forever. It's my best weapon and my only weapon right now. So anyway, hey, I appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Have a great rest of your Faith and Family Sunday. If you're a football fan, go watch football. If you're a pumpkin soup fan like Alan's making, enjoy that. Send me a message. Don't be a stranger. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll talk to you soon. Don't forget, live your legacy.